increasing their risk of erectile dysfunction, of heart attack, of stroke, of blindness, of every organ in their body shutting down and ceasing to function. But since their doctor says, well, you're relatively skinny, Mark, you got a little belly pooch, but that's it. That's no big deal. And you feel like shit. You got no energy. You got no get up and go. You're gaining weight. You feel like crap. But your doc says, well, you're skinny, therefore you're healthy, and they send you on your way. Every guy with any of these symptoms that we talk about, you need to go to your doctor and politely, respectfully demand those 5 tests, and then also ask for a free and a total testosterone while you're at it, especially if you're having fatigue and no drive, no get up and go, because you might have low testosterone in addition to having prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. And Mark can tell you what the combination of low T and prediabetes and hyperinsulinemia, what did that feel like, Mark, back when you had all those?
You feel like shit. You truly do. And today's video, I'm going to give you the steps to master your day. Your hormones. Switch those sons of bitches on. The boosters. And we've largely talking about the inhibitors there. And that's the biggest cause of low T, low energy, fatigue, all of that shit. Then the V8 grunt. So you can whack a supercharger inside you and power up your V8 engine. And we'll talk about those here today. But, you know, when this was taken, I was on TRT. And the biggest problem, as you'll learn from previous videos, and they're all linked below, is that testosterone can turn into estrogen. And that's what an estrogen-dominant man looks like. That's what I was like. Now, I reached out to this legend, Scott Stevenson, pro bodybuilder. He's got a PhD in applied exercise physiology. And it took a bit of time to get here, but I got there. And it's very similar to what I'm doing today. However, I was on TRT back then. And I'm off it now. But can you imagine what it's going to feel like when you get to that place? It's not a cakewalk. It's not easy to do. And the biggest problem that everyone faces is they want that grunt. They want to get out of bed and, get things done like a boss. But here's the rub. If you really want to unlock beast mode and be the lion in your life, you're not going to like this. This is going to sound brutal, but you've got to get your blood labs in optimal ranges. And I've spoken about that. And today I'm going to just drive into it a little bit more because you can get to that place. I was a busted man in 2018 when my low carb doctor looked at my blood labs, and just before I go there, my previous doctor said, they're okay. My blood labs are okay. He didn't check for all of them. He didn't check for insulin, testosterone, none of it. He said, you don't need to check that. That's not needed. Then my other doctor said, oh shit, that's needed, man. We've got to fix this problem. I had an inflamed prostate. I had insulin resistance, and I had no clue. I felt like shit. I felt like a lazy loser. I was packing on the fat, and I felt terrible. So that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. Along the way, when TRT was actually working for me, that's kind of where I got to. So, I know what it feels like to be a man, but I also know what it feels like to get broken again. Like TRT stopped working for me. My prostate was inflamed. I had testosterone resistance. So yeah, it's a thing. You can actually get testosterone resistance. And as I've spoken about in previous videos, I've got pretty crap genetics. I've got a slow testosterone gene. I've also got really bad fat loss genes. So when Dr. J went over my genetics, this is what he discovered.
Shortly after 20, my FTO gene took over and I got fat.
Yeah. Yeah, those are powerful genes, those FTO. The BBC did a whole 1-hour documentary on that gene.
We didn't even talk about that, did we? Haven't we talked about that yet?
No, it's in there though, for sure.
There we go. Look, so I've got a pretty impressive
worst ones you can have.
So I've got the worst obesity genes that you can have.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you could have other ones on top of that, but have 3 pluses on these FTO genes is definitely stacked up against you. It basically means your fat cells want to store fat more than most people. You don't want to burn it as energy. You just want to store it.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I had to work really hard on. So I've got, really bad fat loss genes. So when I came off TRT, this was me. For about 2 years, my testosterone wasn't too bad. That's the best that I could do. And I was trying hard in the gym. I knew how to train. And, I wasn't there. But like with everything that I do, I want to solve the problem. So I eventually reached out to people a lot smarter than me, Dr. Ken Berry. He put me in contact with my now advisor and mentor, Dr. J, and I got there. And this was me in April 1st last year, and this is me currently. So this was taken a couple of days ago. So don't listen to the system. As I've spoken about on previous videos, and coming from Huden, but also Dr. J, men in their 90s, which are not rare, and they're making as much testosterone and dihydrotestosterone as they were in their 20s. And you might be thinking, well, shit, what's going on? Well, check out the very first video in this series and you'll see what's going on. They don't care about your low T. They don't give a shit. But you can unwind that damage. There's cutting edge research out there now, as you can see on screen there. And I've spoken about this on previous videos too. Larger testicular size, higher calculated free testosterone, luteinizing hormone. And on previous videos, I've spoken about if you eat the wrong fats. And this one was done with healthy men, young, healthy men, about testicular volume. You eat the right fats, it increases testicular volume. You eat the wrong fats, it decreases testicular volume. So, you've just got to decide where you want to end up in life. Do you want to be this poor dude here, which is not your fault? You can fix this mess if you haven't left it too late. Or do you want to be this legend over here, where it's a lot easier? Sure, testosterone is not going to ensure success at any fucking thing, but it's certainly going to make things a lot easier, and that's the point. And on the final two videos, I'll start unpacking what we call testosterone boosting activities throughout the day. And that's a big thing, because a lot of people just plummet their testosterone through the day. So there's things you can do to increase testosterone. So there's lots of things that we can do. Now, as I've spoken about in previous videos, this here speaks volumes, and this is why you have to make sure that your blood panels are optimized. Now, the biggest one that I'll just zoom in here right now is insulin, right? It's the crux of all evil, because a standard lab panel, they'll tell you that 2.6 to 24.9 is good. It's not even close. You've got to get it between 2 and 5. Now, when insulin is up too high, cortisol, foreign estrogen, xenos, trigs, inflammation, and estrogen itself, right? You're taking your hard-earned testosterone, what little testosterone you've got left, as I've spoken about in previous videos, they're linked below. All your androgens, we're talking DHEA, testosterone, and dihydrotestosterone through this enzyme aromatase, and it's turning into estrogen. So we become estrogen dominant. Now, what might shock you, I spoke about this on the previous video, but the science is very clear on this. It's been well researched. So when you've got upregulation of the aromatase enzyme here, you're turning T into estrogen, what little testosterone you've got left, you've got an enlarged prostate, man boobs, obesity, atherosclerosis, heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, erectile dysfunction, and prostate cancer. Now, you'll be thinking, why is it driving prostate cancers? Well, very simply, coming from these leading researchers, insulin is about grow, and what it inhibits is these oncogenes here that trigger apoptosis. So it inhibits apoptosis, cell death of diseased and precancerous cells. So if insulin is chronically in the up position, we have disease of all kinds. All of this shit here. The system doesn't care about your insulin, your testosterone. They don't care about it. I just can't imagine why. But I've spoken about that on previous videos. And just to emphasize how critical getting this aromatase enzyme down regulates so you can make optimal testosterone on screen there. Increased stress, appetite, foreign estrogen cyclically upregulate estrogen production. Aromatase upregulation, which increases estrogen concentration, which in turn upregulates 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase tenfold to create increased cortisol, which isn't good. You feel like shit. Now you just don't care. At the end of the day, you're exhausted. And it gets worse, which further upregulates aromatase ninefold, which also increases appetite for poor quality carbohydrates, which reactivate and push up insulin again, which in turn upregulates aromatase and sixfold. And we're just becoming this dude over here. We have got no chance when we don't know our blood panels. So that's the point. And the information is linked below. And I've also got a community which is linked below that shows you private member-only information about how to get this right. So if you want to go join the community, the link is below. So what we're going to focus in on here is just, we have to understand that all of these things, insulin, cortisol, all of those things, they have to be in optimal blood panels. And that's the inhibitors, right? That's what's screwing us up. Now, let's talk about what it takes to put on muscle. As I learned, from Dr. J, what we have to do is two things. This pathway here called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin. And we've also got to have optimal free T and free dihydrose. So free T goes into the muscle cell. It's a transcription factor. That goes to a promoter and promotes a pathway into the nucleus of the DNA that hits specific genes that transcribe mRNA proteins that come out to build muscle. Now, the biggest problem with that is this. This is the mTOR protein muscle building pathway. So mTOR over here, it's upregulated when you get enough quality amino acids, and also when you train in the gym, it goes up. Now, what's going to screw that up? Well, if you've got cortisol too high, it comes down here and inhibits mTOR. And as you saw on that previous screen, when you've got too much aromatase activity, cortisol goes up. So there's not a lot of muscle building going on. But to make matters worse, your T's low anyway. You don't have a lot of free T left. So there's not a lot of muscle building going on. So the system is screwing us men up big time. So once you fix all of those issues, then you should be able to build muscle. But there's another thing that you can do too. You've got a gene that regulates how much muscle you can put on. It's called the myostatin gene. And this is it here. This is the gene SNP. And on this bull, they knocked it out. So he just packed on the muscle. These two dogs here, it wasn't knocked out. And this dog here, it was knocked out. And they've actually shown now that if you supplement creatine, it downregulates gene expression of the myostatin gene. So it helps you build more muscle. There's a lot of research behind creatine. Now, as I mentioned on previous videos, this is absolutely everything that we've researched that causes that inappropriate upregulation of aromatase and takes all of our androgens here through aromatase and turns it into estrogen. So that is huge. What we have to do is take those off the table. And the easiest way to do that, if this is the first video you've looked at, have a look at the rest of them below. We talk about the Omega index. We talk about the blood panels, iron overload, things like that. And that's going to be a long step in the right direction. You have to get your blood panels done. Now, to keep healthy estrogen levels, because when estrogen goes up too high, that's even if your testosterone hits 300, you're shut down cold. So when estrogen goes up too high, we're shut down cold. Now, remember, for a lot of men out there, they've got just that insulin up. So it's taking T and turn it into estrogen. And when you've got more estrogen, you make more estrogen. So it's a double whammy. Now, your liver metabolizes estrogens, right? So you've got 3 estrogens, estrogen, estradiol, and this is how the liver does it. Sulfation, glucuronidation, COMT. You need adequate choline in your diet and all of these pathways on. Now, don't worry about that. What I'm driving at right now is that you need optimal vitamin and mineral status, right? The body needs vitamins and minerals to keep all these pathways working 24/7. And you need adequate protein. And what does the system say? Have low protein. We're not getting enough, more than likely. So you need methionine, cysteine, taurine, glycine, glutamine, just to keep liver detox working. So you can see the problem with the mainstream narrative there. All right, so what else we got to cover here? I'm just going to cover the mitochondria, the omega. We're going to cover all of this, circadian entrainment and gut health. We'll do this one on the next video, number 8. Or was it number 7? Anyway, just gut health here. Now, it's super important for gut health. And one of the main reasons, as you'll soon learn, the liver, thyroid hormone is key. The liver converts 60% of T3 into I screwed that up, T4 into T3, the liver. So that's why we need healthy liver. But the gut converts another 20% T4 into T3. So clearly we need a healthy gut, because as you'll soon see, and I'm going to show you how to optimize thyroid hormone here today, serum and brain testosterone are taken down by bad gut bugs here. So the species is this one there, and this one, same species. So what that simply means is what I've learned from Dr. J. Some people are predisposed to really poor gut flora. And guess what? You eat too many carbs, it populates this species right here. Okay, so huge. Gut health is huge. And I'll do another video in the future. Like, I've got really poor gut health, and I've got to be very on point with my gut. And I'll show you what I do. Now, what we'll have a look now is the mitochondria right here. So the old mitochondria does a lot of really cool things. But the three things that we're going to zoom in on here today is there a necessary step to make testosterone. They produce most of your energy in the form of ATP. They're the only place you can burn body fat. And the remarkable thing is you can make brand new mitochondria. In fact, I learned from Dr. Rhonda Patrick, 49% in 3 weeks. And I'll talk about how to do that on the next call. But today I'm going to show you an easy thing to do to start making new mitochondria by default. So the question becomes, how do you do that? Well, it goes back to the Omega Index, which is linked below. Now, if you haven't watched that video, you wouldn't know much about the Omega Index. And the problem is that in the Western diet, the great Western diet that the system promotes, has got a ridiculous and absurd and obscene amount of omega-6 in our diet and hardly any omega-3. Now, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with omega-6. We've just got too much of it in our cells. And over time, our cells become saturated with it. So the exciting news, as I spoke about in that previous video, 12 to 16 weeks, you can get back to balance. Okay? Now, the very interesting thing about omega-6, if you get a lot of it, you got a lot of fat and it's white, and you see the color of the flesh there? It's not very dark, is it? That's because it lacks mitochondria. So if you get grain-fed animals, they're fat, which it's really tasty, and they've got hardly any mitochondria. And it makes perfect sense when you shine the torch on the research. So omega-3 fatty acid metabolites increase browning of adipose tissue. So what does that mean? Your metabolism goes up. And you get mitochondrial biogenesis by default. So you got more mitochondria. And it makes perfect sense when you have a look at this grass-fed animal. So they're getting from the grass a lot of omega-3 and a lot of omega-6 at the right balance. And that's the key point. Now you see that the flesh is very dark, which means it's got a lot of mitochondria and it's got hardly any fat. And that's what we want. We want more mitochondria to make more testosterone, to burn through body fat, and to have more energy. And a simple fix is just changing the fats that you eat. Again, nothing wrong with omega-6. It's just saturated in the Western diet, and that's the problem. Now, I've got this picture of me. Now, this is when I had a lot of omega-6 in my body. So clearly I was at a disadvantage. When I started working with Scott Stevenson, he didn't tell me why, and that was a big problem for me. This is the actual part of the diet plan that he gave me. He said, you're not getting enough essential fatty acids, and omega-6 and omega-3 are essential fatty acids. But he said omega-3 was my problem. I had to supplement fish oil and also get good monofats from macadamias. So monofats are really good for the heart and for the brain. And he also said to get really high quality, fresh farm eggs, right? More omega-6, grass-fed beef only, And, and I had no clue. And the problem that I encountered in 2016 is that I went off all of this. I went off this diet plan that he gave me, and then my omega-6 ratio went up. I got inflamed. If you watch that video link below, you'll see how that's just terrible for the body. You got more cortisol, which means you've got more estrogen. You feel like shit. So check out that video. Now, another reason why the omegas are really good, right? Dietary omega-3 fatty acid supplementation increases the rate of muscle protein synthesis. So you're going to put on more muscle. Now, this is the omega test in question. It's linked on that video, which is linked below. Now, when I got my omegas tested, they were here. And the bulk of the men that we help, that's where theirs is too. And my level now, to get it in the desirable range, you want it between there and about 14%. And mine is off the chart here at 19.55. So if you think about what's happening for me, it's keeping me lean. I've got more mitochondria, more testosterone, more fat burning. I've got more browning of the adipose tissue. I'm just a lean muscle building machine. And it's because I choose to eat the right fats, monos, and the right balance of omega-6 and omega-3. It is that simple. That video is linked below. And the fish oil pills too, right? Again, they higher semen volume, sperm count, larger ball sack, testicular size, higher free testosterone. So pretty significant. Now, one thing that can absolutely screw you up is iron overload. I spoke about this on the other video, but when you've got too much ferritin, and I'll explain what that means very shortly on the next slide, you're going to have hypogonadism. So what does that mean? Your testes atrophy and shrink. Terrible. Just that one thing alone, Infertility, sexual dysfunction. You've also got lower testosterone levels, decreased libido, all of that shit. And it gets worse because I'll just make this a little bit bigger right here. It can attack the pituitary, hypothyroidism, hypogonadism, attack the heart, the liver, the pancreas. So you got diabetes and the old ball sack there, the gonads. So iron overload is huge. Now, what's very concerning is that optimal ranges, the labs, we've got to get it in optimal ranges. We need to get it between 30 and 70 and at a max 100. And the standard lab panels say 15 to 150. But look here, 330 to 400. And one of the people that we helped, his was 401. And how do you fix that problem? Simple. You donate blood. So let's just say your ferritin is at 300. It's going to take probably 3 blood donations to get it back in the butter zone. So I can't emphasize that enough. Get your ferritin levels checked because they cause a lot of oxidative stress. Cortisol goes up, estrogen goes up. You can't make a lot of testosterone. This one thing alone, huge. All right, so just to recap what we've talked about, you've got to get your blood panels in the optimal ranges because it's completely shortchanging you. Estrogen goes up, you might be making 300 testosterone or 600, but you're capable of making 800 or even 1200, and you're shortchanged. And to make matters worse, your muscle building goes off, right? When estrogen's up too high, that mTOR complex is off. Right, not a lot of muscle building going on, and not a lot of fat loss going on either. So what we'll have a look at now are the androgens, thyroid, and growth hormone. All right, so I just can't emphasize enough. Insulin and glucose are the crux of all evil. We have to get those in optimal ranges. So as we now know, testosterone, you're missing out. I mean, you're going to be a lean, mean machine. It reduces fear and anxiety, pushes up courage, confidence, and optimism. But it also helps with cognitive, your brain, your money maker. It makes you on point. Mood regulation, energy levels. That's huge. It's putting a lot of energy into the system. So I can't emphasize enough that we have to get this right. But it all starts, make no mistake, with optimal blood labs. That's the foundation. Once you know where you're busted inside and the system has caused this dysfunction inside you, then you can know exactly what you need to do to get your blood panels optimized so you can have energy, You can make testosterone. You can be the man you were born to be. And another hormone that doesn't get a lot of attention is dihydro. So when you do make your testosterone here, it's got two pathways. You can go to estrogen, and this is where most men are sending their testosterone, or you can go to dihydro. Now, the interesting thing about dihydro is it has a 5 times higher binding affinity to the androgen receptor, the testosterone receptor. So that's huge in and of itself. And it's got a 10-fold higher potency. So it's like a magic trick to boosting testosterone, right? So dihydro is pretty big. So as you can see, if the aromatase is up, testosterone is shut down, and you're just taking it all to estrogen, we have to fix that problem. And another special mention on the blood labs is that vitamin D isn't really a vitamin, it's a steroid hormone. And for a lot of people, they don't have optimal levels of vitamin D. So this is another really important blood lab. You need to get it between 50 and 100 nanograms per milliliter. This is the last panel that I got checked. Mine was 77.7. And I find that when it goes above that, I don't sleep as well, because too much vitamin D can inhibit melatonin production. So you won't get into deep sleep. That's one thing that I've noticed with myself. Thyroid hormone. So as I mentioned earlier there, the liver is pretty important because it'll take the T4, which is a thyroid hormone, and think of T4 like crude oil. It can't really do a lot. It needs to be converted to T3. So liver, healthy liver, you've got 60% of your T4 converted into T3. The gut, again, another 20%. And the other 20% happens in the periphery, the brain, other places like that. So on this paper here, and this has been well elucidated in the research, T3 increases Leydig cell LH receptors, right? This is your ball sack where you make testosterone. So you got more doors for the precursor of testosterone LH to come in to make testosterone. So it's saying make testosterone. And another important thing, it also increases mRNA levels of steroidogenic enzymes in the pathway to make testosterone. And these enzymes, legends, are everywhere. Protein kinase A, protein kinase G, look at them. So think about that, all these enzymes here. Thyroid hormone is boosting testosterone through the roof. And what else does it do? All of these things here. T3 increases amino acid uptake for protein synthesis, huge. It enhances the transporters for glucose, so it's going to optimize glucose, which is going to optimize insulin. It's going to increase your energy. It's going to break down fat for energy production. It supports a healthy cholesterol system by increasing the gene expression of LDL receptors on your liver, and it increases your metabolic rate, and it boosts testosterone, as you just saw there. So how do you optimize thyroid hormone? Well, again, like with anything, blood panels are going to elucidate what you need to do, but it needs a lot of vitamins and minerals to keep it working. But all of these things take it out. Stress, trauma, a low-calorie diet. So if you're trying to drop the body fat, this being in chronic calorie deprivation is not going to get you the results that you want. Toxins, infections, liver and kidney dysfunction. Again, blood panels are key here. Medications, big pharma. You've also got stress again. You've got fluoride, pesticides, heavy metals, and also food sensitivities. And I've spoken about that on a previous video, and it's linked below. So as you can see there, it's absolutely huge. But guess what else takes it out? This is Dr. J. Listen.
Thyroid, the TG gene is concerning. Only concerning if you have inflammation here, but a lot of people do have, a lot of people do have inflammation.
Yep.
And that's a 10-fold higher risk of autoimmune thyroid issues.
Tenfold, right? So
Yeah. Well, so if he's sleeping, like inflammation usually is like lack of sleep, too much stress, like real obvious stuff, high blood sugar, heavy metals.
Yep.
Testosterone off or whatever. So the basics are key, but it sounds like he's dialing in all that. The other thing about this gene is even if you're temporarily have inflammation, like say you've got just one day of stress, it'll shut your thyroid off for a couple of days, maybe, you know?
Really? Okay. So stress and inflammation can shut this one down for a couple of days.
Yeah, so you just want to make sure you definitely don't want chronic inflammation, because that's where you get Hashimoto's, where you get complete destruction of your thyroid.
Yeah, so inflammation, again, on your blood panels, right? It always comes back to blood panels. Now, a standard lab will say C-reactive protein is okay if it's 3 and below. No, not even close. The new cutting-edge research says 1 and below. And, you know, mindset is absolutely huge, because psychological stress, the emotional stress you experience day-to-day triggers inflammation. Then that triggers repetitive thoughts, tanks cognition, and you get systemic inflammation. Right? And I'll be talking about how to fix your mindset, because that's something I've had to work on hard. I've got a propensity for anxiety. I've had panic attacks, performance anxiety. I've had to control my mindset. And I'll explore how we can start to approach that in future videos. Now, growth hormone, absolutely huge. And guess what it comes back to? Glucose and insulin, right? In humans, when glucose is up too high, it inhibits growth hormone. And elevated insulin does the same thing. Now, when I read this book from Matthew Walker, sleep scientist, this is what he said. So this is huge. Without growth hormone replenishing the lining of your blood vessels called the endothelium, they're shorn and stripped of their integrity. Vessels rupture, heart attack and stroke being the most common. So blood panels are absolutely huge. Now, this is what thyroid hormone does for us. Number one up here, it potently stimulates the release of free fatty acid from adipose tissue, our fat cells, so it leans us out. And it works alongside thyroid hormone and testosterone to increase muscle protein synthesis. And number three, which I think is the most important here, it rejuvenates the tissues and the organs in your body. We're talking about the brain, the heart, the blood vessels, the testes, right? The ball sack, the intestines, kidneys, the muscle, including the smooth muscle of the penis, bone marrow, cartilage, liver, central nervous system. It is absolutely huge. And if you've got elevations in glucose and insulin, right, we're out to lunch. We're in a disease state. It's just terrible that the system just doesn't care about this. They don't even check it on blood labs. And the final piece of the puzzle is sleep. Now, I don't know whether you know, but you can create a lot of testosterone in sleep, but not a lot of people are sleeping properly. Now, coming from Matthew Walker, again, sleep scientists, and I quote, after 10 days of just 7 hours sleep, the brain is as dysfunctional as it would be going without sleep for 24 hours. So coming from these sleep scientists, they say we need to get between 8 and 9. So sleep is the foundation for optimal testosterone production, 24/7, 365. So absolutely huge. What we're going to segue into now is how to optimize thyroid and get your energy pathways switched on first thing in the morning so you've got plenty of energy to power your day. And to get to that place, what I want to do is just put you through what we talked about so far in this video series. So I'm going to do that now. If you'd like to join this community here, legends, I've got private videos in here that's going to help you optimize, especially the blood panels, which I've been talking about there. So as you can see there, what it's going to give you are the blood labs. And I've also got more information about where they should be too. And this is all free. I want to give you as much information as I can. So all of that's there. And to get to that place, and I'll show you through the course a little bit more. So this is all free. We've got everything there to, master everything. We've also got events. So I'll be doing live Q&A. And this is a brand new community too. So there's not a lot of people in it yet. So as this builds, I'll be doing probably 2 lives every week. And you'll get notifications. So you can download an app. It's called Mighty Networks. And to get access to it, all you need to do is click that link below to join the community. So basically, you just need to click on there and just put in your name, or you can just use Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Apple to join, and then you'll have access to that community. So if that's something that you're interested in, where you'll get private members only content, I'd love to see you there. So that's available to you. These are the 9 steps that we need to take to optimize our energy, our muscle growth, increase courage and confidence, all of those things. So, everybody that I help, I want them to feel like I feel. And I'm nearly 52, and I feel as good at 52 as I did in my late teens. And that's how I feel. That's my experience. So the first thing we spoke about in this series is that, number one, the system is busted. They don't give a shit about your low T. They brush it off, say it's no big deal. We now know that it is a pretty big deal. So the second thing that I want you to understand is that in my experience and what I learned, we have to look at the new science, the cutting edge science. We can increase testicular size and volume. We can optimize the system, and we can live a very long, healthy life. And the third thing we have to do, as I've mentioned, is we have to get a comprehensive metabolic blood panel, because what we don't know, we can't fix. We have to get it in those optimal ranges. On the 4th video here, I started to unpack how we're going to boost testosterone, boost T there, and that's absolutely huge, that video. It's all linked below, and there's critical steps in there that shows you how to eliminate what I call Trojan horses. These Trojan horses just take your testosterone out. Then this video here, we talked all about the Omega Index. And as you've now seen in this video, the Omega Index is pretty huge. We need to make sure that we've got it at least at 8% and above. And the final one that I have done before this video that we're doing here today, quite simply, is not one diet fits all. We're all different. They'll tell you that if you eat like this, you'll be fine. And as you'll see in that video, no, we're all different. Not one diet fits all. And we can optimize our diet. And I went into great detail in that video about how to do that. So this video here really is all about lifestyle, how we can start to switch on our energy pathways, our detox pathways, optimize thyroid, all of it. Just switch them on in the morning. So we have energy pathways and testosterone pathways and detox pathways turning 24/7. So the question now becomes, how do we achieve that? Well, it all starts with the sun. That's right. So if you've listened to anything that Professor Huberman has said, what we need is what he calls precise circadian entrainment. So what we need to do is get out in the morning sun and get about 5 to 30 minutes, right? And I'll explain why that's key. And we can do other strategies too, and I'll talk about that on the next call. And this is going to really boost testosterone through the roof. It's what I call testosterone boosting activities. But as you can see here, if you don't get precise circadian entrainment, and I'll explain exactly what that entails shortly, this is what we can expect. These two columns are the acute problems that we face, and this is what most people face every single day. So you got fluctuations in mood, irritability, anxiety, loss of empathy. We don't give a shit. We're frustrated. We become impulsive. We have negative silence. So what does that mean? More negative thoughts than we care to have, right? Terrible. And we rely on caffeine to get through the day. That's what I used to do. Now for the brain, cognitive performance tanks, memory consolidation tanks, attention, communication, decision-making, creativity, and productivity, it all tanks. Now, long-term consequences, you have cancer, diabetes, depression, psychosis, you got infection, it's just terrible. So how do we start to look at this problem and fix it? So as I mentioned there, it all starts with optimizing your morning. So what you see here, testosterone up here, nice and high, that's what we want. And remember, on the next video, I will show you how to do testosterone boosting activities for the day. So you're basically just topping up testosterone. And I'll talk about this pulse generator here in a moment. So when we get early morning sun, as Huberman says here, right, and 10 to 30 minutes is what he says, it's going to optimize cortisol. And cortisol puts a lot of energy into the system, and that's absolutely huge. So cortisol is a misunderstood dude, unfortunately. We have to get him at healthy levels. He follows a rhythm. So as you can see in the first 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours, cortisol comes up, puts a lot of energy into the system, then it tapers off, then around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon has a little uptick, and this is where a lot of people get low-level anxiety in the afternoon, but this is just how our physiology works. And the hormone underneath here, which is melatonin, it comes down while cortisol is up. Then when we switch off the lights at nighttime, melatonin comes up and we go into sleep. Now this pulse generator here that I mentioned, as I learned from Dr. J, we've got a pulse generator in our brain. And every 2 to 3 hours, it does a system check. And if you got mental stress or stress in the body, like inflammation and our blood panels are out, you don't produce a lot of LH. Now remember from previous videos, LH is the precursor to make testosterone. And this is where it comes back to healthy insulin and blood panels. So in this study, they got healthy men and they wanted to see if they could increase the pulse frequency and the amplitude. So more pulse frequencies of LH to make more testosterone and a bigger amplitude to make more LH, to make more testosterone. So what do? Well, they block that aromatase enzyme with big pharma drugs. And that's exactly what happened. So we don't have to do that. Certainly not. What we have to do is pay attention to these hardworking scientists and understand that we can do testosterone boosting activities. And if we get early morning sun, it switches on all these pathways to optimize energy, testosterone production, have a very powerful day. Now, the problem becomes, as I learned from Huberman, if you don't get that early morning sun, cortisol late shifts. So you're producing a lot of cortisol at low levels all throughout the day. So you got poor energy. And we reach for coffee to pick us up. We reach for comfort food. We think we need a glucose hit or whatever, but that's not it. Now, Huberman also went on to say that after 4 hours, you hit what's called the circadian dead zone. All bets are off. You're not going to optimize cortisol that day. And cortisol stays elevated, which keeps melatonin down so you don't sleep deeply. So you can see what's going on here. So that's how we're going to start to optimize cortisol and be able to have great energy throughout the day. And there's another hormone that switches on. So from this research paper, and Huberman spoke about it also, and he said this is a non-negotiable. I mean, if you want great thyroid hormone, this is what we have to do. When you get 10 to 30 minutes of morning sun, and you can also use light therapy, the light hits the retina, then it goes to a specific region in your brain which promotes thyroid stimulating hormones. So it switches on your thyroid hormone if your blood panels are optimal and if you've got plenty of vitamins and minerals to switch it on. So you can see how that if we start paying attention to these hardworking scientists, we're a long step in the right direction to optimizing all of our hormones. So again, what we want to do is get out the morning sun, 10 to 30 minutes. And if it's overcast, you need like 20 to 30 minutes. And if it's raining, you need 30 to 40 minutes. And light therapy, what they've shown in their research, so this is how light therapy can help. So if you're in the winter and you can't get out in the sun early in the morning, just 30-minute sessions doubles testosterone. So, I mean, their testosterone was pretty low anyway at 21 nanograms per deciliter, but it got them to 360 nanograms per deciliter. And that all they used was this light therapy there. So that's pretty interesting. Now, if you think about thyroid hormone in the winter, our ancestors pay careful attention to this. This is what Hal's explained to me. Our ancestors got out in the sun, say at 8 o'clock, the sun went down at 4 or 5. So they didn't make a lot of thyroid hormone. Now come summer, the sun's up at 5:30, they go out in the sun, thyroid hormone goes up, and you've got a lot of thyroid hormone to burn through the body fat, to make testosterone, to do all of those things. They put a lot of energy into the system. So for our ancestors in the winter, think about it. They had to survive the long, cold winter. So their metabolism came down. Everything came down to preserve energy through the long, cold winter. So again, if we think about what these hardworking scientists are telling us, if we get out in the sun in the morning, switch on all our hormones, thyroid hormone, all of those, we're going to have a lot of energy to kick ass throughout the day. So I hope this has been helpful, legends. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if this has been helpful, give it a thumbs up and share it if you can. It'll help me reach more men, because I want to show them that they can fix the problem. Blood panels are the foundation, then sleep, and then sun. And on the next videos, we're going to dive deep into those testosterone boosting activities and talk about how to get into deep restorative sleep, which is the foundation there. So you got to think to yourself that, you know, there are men in their 90s, which are not rare, as Huberman said, that are making as much testosterone and dihydrate testosterone as they were in their goddamn 20s. So you can be here, kicking ass for a very long time. And the biggest, what really grinds my gears is the system brushes off low T. And I just want to play this video again to show you how important testosterone is. I spoke to Dr. Amy B. Keelan back in the beginning of 2020, and I knew testosterone was important, but when she said this to me, I was just like, holy shit. So listen.
Problems with mood disorders, depression, insomnia, anxiety, all of that goes up as you have lower testosterone levels. And then certainly sexual dysfunction. So everything from low libido to low sperm counts and infertility are all associated with low testosterone. So it's not something that we should just brush off as being like, it's no big deal. Like, it's kind of a big deal. It actually means that our men are getting less and less healthy, and they're more and more likely to suffer from some kind of disease problem.
So if you've got low testosterone, you'll have insomnia, all right? And that's just a terrible state to be in. So that's going to crush your testosterone in and of itself, all right, legends? So let's just recap what we've talked about here today. That, you know, this is all we've got to think about, getting these hormones working for us, and it all comes back to blood panels. Future videos, I'll go deeper into these boosters here. We've talked largely about the inhibitors there. We haven't really discussed too deeply gut health, but we will. Circadian entrainment is really simple. Morning and afternoon sun. The Omega Index, holy shit, that video is linked below. And the mitochondria, I'll dive deep into how we can increase mitochondrial biogenesis by using strategies like HIIT cardio and lifting weights in subsequent videos, and also sleep. But if you've got low T, sleep's going to be tough. And another hormone that plays into sleep is growth hormone. That's right. And again, with growth hormone, if insulin is up too high or glucose is up too high, you don't make growth hormones, so it's going to screw up your sleep. So if we've got optimal blood panels and we follow all of these steps, we can kick ass in life. We can get to a place where we're feeling pretty good. And that's the whole point. So legends, if you got any questions or comments, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.